In the dense jungles of Vietnam, the ground itself was a weapon. Here are the brutal traps that made every single step a gamble with death. Let's begin with spike and pit traps. Standard punji pit. Concealed beneath a harmless layer of leaves and dirt, these pits relied on simplicity to cripple enemy forces. The fire-hardened bamboo stakes at the bottom were often smeared with filth to ensure that a foot puncture resulted in a severe, squad-slowing infection. Sidewinder trap. Buried in narrow trenches, this vicious mechanical trap utilized a rubber band spring system to snap two spiked boards inward. Triggered by a footstep, the device instantly clamped around the victim's lower leg, driving rusty metal deep into the ankles and shins with agonizing, bone-scraping force. The Venus flytrap. Modeled after the carnivorous plant, this steel frame utilized overlapping, downward-angled barbs buried in a pit. While stepping in caused initial injury, the true horror lay in the extraction. Pulling the leg out forced the spikes to dig deeper, shredding flesh and making escape impossible without excavation. Side closing trap. Relying on the potential energy of stretched elastic or springs, two heavy wooden slats, armed with metal teeth, waited in ambush. A simple pressure board released the tension, slamming the jaws shut on a soldier's calf or thigh, often crushing bone and pinning the victim in place. Spiked mudball. Suspended high in the jungle canopy, this heavy sphere of sun-baked clay was studded with jagged metal shrapnel. When an unsuspecting soldier tripped the release wire, the ball swung down in a silent, deadly arc, striking the chest or head with enough kinetic energy to be instantly fatal. Bridge trap. Guerrillas would sabotage existing crossings by partially cutting support beams or rigging a breakaway section. As a soldier crossed the seemingly stable structure, the wood would snap under their weight, plunging them into the murky water below, where a bed of sharpened punji stakes waited to pierce them. Next, spike board pit. Unlike simple foot traps, this deep excavation was lined with multiple spiked planks on the walls and floor. A fall into this pit guaranteed catastrophic injury, as the angled spikes would tear into the victim's legs and torso from every direction, making a safe rescue nearly impossible. Then, tilting lid spike pit. Ingeniously disguised as a solid patch of trail, this trap used a balanced pivot lid that rotated instantly under weight. The soldier would drop into a spike-filled void, and in some horrific designs, the lid would swing back into place, sealing the wounded victim in darkness. Next up, mechanical and kinetic traps. Bamboo whip. Utilizing the natural flexibility of the jungle, a long bamboo pole was bent back and secured with a tripwire. When triggered, the pole lashed out at knee or waist height with terrifying velocity, driving long spikes into the target and delivering a blow powerful enough to shatter bone. The mace. This medieval-style siege weapon consisted of a massive log studded with spikes, hoisted high into the trees. Triggered by a tripwire below, it converted potential energy into a devastating pendulum swing, sweeping through the kill zone and obliterating anyone unfortunate enough to be in its path. Tiger trap. A terrifying deadfall device. This weighted wooden grate was armed with downward-facing metal spikes and concealed in the foliage above. A tripwire severed the support line, allowing gravity to drive the heavy frame straight down, pinning the victim to the earth with lethal, crushing force. Bow arrow trap. Fixed horizontally to a tree trunk or hidden in brush, a tensioned bow waited silently for a target. The tripwire release launched a poison-tipped bamboo arrow, or metal bolt, at waist level, silently piercing the flank of a passing patrolman before a sound could even be made. Next, the door trap. Soldiers clearing villages had to be constantly vigilant, as opening a simple hut door could trigger a counterweight mechanism. This released a heavy, spiked log or plank from the rafters, swinging it downward in a violent arc to strike the first man entering the room in the face or chest. Next, the man catcher. Resembling a gigantic, crude bear trap, this device used powerful springs to hold two spiked wooden arcs open. Concealed in tall elephant grass, the trigger mechanism snapped the jaws shut on a soldier's torso or legs, locking them in a grip of iron and wood that required tools to pry open. Continuing with explosive traps. Cartridge trap. A marvel of improvisation. This trap consisted of a rifle cartridge wedged into a bamboo cylinder with a nail fixed at the base. The weight of a stepping boot acted as the hammer, driving the primer onto the nail and firing the bullet straight up through the soldier's foot. Then, grenade in a can. By wedging a live grenade with its safety pin removed into a tight tin can, the explosive remained dormant as long as the lever was compressed. A taut tripwire jerked the grenade free from its casing, releasing the spoon and starting a short 4-second countdown to detonation. Mudball mine. Camouflage was the primary weapon of this explosive device, which was encased in a shell of dried clay or mud. Indistinguishable from the thousands of natural earth clods on a jungle trail, the pressure of a boot crushed the casing and triggered the hidden explosive core instantly. Flag souvenir booby trap. Exploiting the psychological desire for war trophies, guerrillas would leave flags, weapons, or documents in plain sight. These items were wired to buried explosives, turning a moment of victory into a tragedy the instant a soldier lifted the object from its resting place. Mud mound claymore. Buried within a seemingly random pile of earth, this improvised directional mine was packed with scrap metal and gunpowder. When detonated remotely or by tripwire, it functioned like a shotgun, blasting a cone of lethal shrapnel across a wide area to shred an entire patrol column. Rubber band grenade. A favored sabotage method, this involved replacing a grenade's safety pin with strong rubber bands. The explosive was hidden in a vehicle's fuel tank or engine. As the chemical rubber dissolved or melted from heat, the lever released, causing a mysterious and destructive explosion long after the saboteur had left. Shell case mine. Unexploded US artillery shells were dug up and converted into devastating anti-vehicle mines. Buried vertically in the road with a pressure-sensitive fuse, a single, converted 105mm shell packed enough explosive power to obliterate a tank or armored personnel carrier and kill everyone inside. Next, LZ trap, anticipating air-mobile tactics. Guerrillas rigged landing zones with explosives, remotely detonated by the rotor wash. Alternatively, sharpened poles were angled to catch the skids or rotors, turning the helicopter's own landing force into a mechanism for a catastrophic crash during the vulnerable touchdown phase. Now let's look at biological and environmental traps. Tethered snake trap. Psychological terror met biological warfare in the tunnels, where a venomous bamboo pit viper was tethered inside a dark recess or satchel. A tunnel-wrapped soldier, checking the space, would be struck in the face or hand by the agitated snake before they could even see the threat. Scorpion spider box. A simple wooden crate or ammo box was filled with aggressive scorpions or spiders and rigged with a spring-release lid. When a soldier opened it, expecting supplies, the swarm was released instantly, causing chaos, painful stings, and panic in the confined spaces of the jungle. Up next, contaminated spikes. The physical trauma of a punji stake was often secondary to the biological threat. Tips were deliberately coated in buffalo dung, carrion, or toxic plants, ensuring that even a minor, non-lethal scratch would fester into gangrene or a systemic infection that required medical evacuation. Bee hornet trap. Leveraging nature itself, guerrillas would relocate massive hives of wild bees or hornets near a trail. A tripwire connected to the branch would shake the nest violently, unleashing a cloud of enraged insects that would relentlessly sting the passing patrol, causing panic and anaphylactic shock. Finally, we have tunnel and specialized traps. False bottom floor. Inside homes or tunnel complexes, a section of the floor was deceptively covered with a thin, fragile material disguised as packed earth. As soon as weight was applied, the crust crumbled, dropping the intruder into a concealed pit of spikes specifically designed to guard the underground sanctuary. Then, gas trap. To protect the intricate Cu-Chi tunnel network, tripwires were rigged to release containers of CS gas or blinding chemical smoke. In the claustrophobic, airless underground passages, this forced the encroaching soldiers to retreat immediately or face suffocation and total disorientation in the pitch black. Spiderweb trap. In the dim jungle light, extremely fine filaments were strung across the path at face level, mimicking spiderwebs. When a soldier instinctively brushed the annoyance away from their face, the tension pulled a pin on a nearby grenade, turning a natural reflex into a lethal error. Secondary charge, a cruel evolution of tactics. This involved a minor, obvious trap designed to wound a point man. Once the squad gathered to treat the wounded or call in a medivac, a massive hidden command detonated mine was triggered, aiming to wipe out the rescuers and the medic. The next one, floating coconut trap. In the waterways of the Mekong Delta, guerrillas hollowed out coconuts and packed them with watertight explosives and a friction igniter. Left to drift with the current, these innocuous floating objects became deadly contact mines when they bumped against the hull of a patrol boat. Underwater tripwire. Crossing rivers was perilous due to tripwires strung just beneath the surface of the silt-heavy water. Invisible to the eye, a soldier wading through the stream would snag the wire with their leg, detonating a claymore or mortar shell positioned on the riverbank. Submerged punji board. To hinder amphibious movements, heavy boards studded with rusty spikes were weighed down on riverbeds. The murky water completely concealed the danger, and stepping on one not only pierced the boot, but injected river pathogens deep into the foot, guaranteeing severe infection. Next, keepsake trap. Small personal items like a Zippo lighter or a fountain pen were rigged with micro-explosives and left on tables. When a soldier attempted to light a cigarette or uncap the pen, the mechanism triggered a small blasting cap, blowing off fingers or blinding the victim.